Hello and what is up everyone, it is Hachi from the Art of Dota. In this video I'm going to show you guys what you want to do to calibrate highly. Now I already made a couple videos about calibration and new rank system in general, but this video is specifically focusing on what heroes you want to play and what you want to do specifically if you want to get a good calibration after your first 10 games. Now this comes with experience not only for me calibrating, playing support, but as well as my friend who calibrated on multiple accounts, I think 3 accounts, playing core position, specifically mid, and he calibrated at Divine 4 or Divine 5 on all of his accounts. So after discussing with him and what his strategy was, as well as from my own personal experience, I feel like I have what it takes to create a video for you guys. And again, we don't know exactly what the new rank system, like how it works, right? It's still under Valve and what they do in the background, and we can't really ever tell unless they tell us. But just from my experience, as well as watching other people calibrate, specifically my friend, I'm able to formulate somewhat of a hypothesis on what I think they take into account during the calibration. So first of all, you want to get a good win rate, so you're still playing to win. So like, of course you want to do well in the games you win, but the win is what matters at the end of the day. So you're still going to want to play a hero that is in meta or enough that you're going to be able to win the game with it. You don't want to play a hero that's just straight up bad, or that is not going to win you the game, you know, even if it's going to give you good stats. So that means that you will have to coordinate your draft somewhat around your team. So whatever hero you're playing, you need to make up for it with the rest of your team's draft. So if you're wanting to play a hero that has high kill potential, for example, in this game here, we're watching the replay of me playing Skywrath. This isn't a calibration game, but I think Skywrath is potentially a very good hero to calibrate because he gets a lot of kills. He has very high KDA, and if you play him from mid position, normally he is classified as support. So if they do take into account that he's like a support hero, if you end up having like mid-hero stats on him with mid-hero kills, you're going to potentially raise your bar in terms of calibration. And again, this really only takes into account your earlier games. It still takes into account your old MMR when you're calibrating, but at some point early on in your calibration, there will be like 4 or 5 games where you're going to have a bigger swing, and that's the games that you want to make the most difference on. And that's when you want to play, you know, high impact heroes that get good KDA, and in general give you a good chance of winning as well. And that's when I talked about before about coordinating with your team a little bit. Again, this is very difficult in pubs, but you're going to want to make sure your team is rounded out. You want to make sure you have a good draft. So I mean, try suggesting heroes. I know it doesn't always work in pubs, especially, you know, in lower games, people are not going to listen to you, but it's better you try than you don't try at all, you know. So suggest the heroes that your team are missing. So if you're missing a pusher, make sure you suggest a pusher. If you're missing a team fighter, suggest a team fighter. If you're missing some hero that can defend towers, you know, suggest that, because you want to make sure you have a rounded out draft around whatever hero you're picking. Because again, if you're picking these more high impact heroes that are going for the kills, they are strong at that one point in the game, but they're also weak at others. You know, Skywrath is very good at getting kills, but he's not that great in terms of pushing towers. I mean, he doesn't push towers at all pretty much. So if you're going to play a hero like Skywrath, you know, a more aggressive hero like a carry like Weaver as well, you want to make sure that your team covers what you lack. In addition, when playing a core position, you want to make sure that you have high impact in the game. So that means that you need to show up to fights and get the KDA, because the game is gonna see the game you're playing on anti-mage where you're super low impact, you know, you're like 0, 2, and 1 or something like that, and you're just AFK farming all game, and they're gonna realize that you didn't impact the game that much, and I'm pretty sure they're not gonna give you that much MMR if you even end up winning that game. Again, my friend played mostly Weaver and heroes like that, Puck as well, high KDA heroes, you know. I think heroes like OD are very good, PA potentially, Skywrath I already mentioned, because that's the easiest stat that Valve can keep track of, right? It sounds stupid, but I mean, I gotta bet that they take into account your KDA and your GPM. But KDA is just easier to look at on a lot of different heroes because, you know, KDA matters not only on mid heroes, but supports, offlaners, roaming heroes. Pretty much if you have a good KDA in the game, it means that you have high impact with less deaths, means that you're not giving away anything to enemy heroes as well, so you're just overall playing well. It's probably the best stat that you can hope for in Dota, and it sounds weird, right? But for the most part, unless you're playing 5 position, and that's a whole different story, and I'll get into that at the end, because I played all my calibration games pretty much playing 5 position. But from any position that's not 5, you know, 4 position, mid, offlaner, for the most part, if you have a good KDA, you're having a decent impact in the game. Most people say, you think of offlaners and you think of roamers and you're like, yeah, they're supposed to die, but that's not true. If you look at like the top offlaners, top 4 position players in the world, they actually minimize their deaths quite heavily. Like heroes or players like Universe, he ends up having very low deaths and a pretty decent KDA. And you gotta bet Valve takes that into account during the calibration. So what you want to aim for in your calibration games is playing a hero that has good impact, good survivability, you know, slippery heroes, as I already mentioned, Weaver, Puck, PA. You're going to get the kills, you're going to have good team fight contribution, and you want to avoid those other heroes that just are more farm oriented, you know, heroes like the anti-mage, and anti-mage on top of that isn't very good right now. So again, you still want to play whatever hero you're comfortable with. You don't want to play a hero just for calibration because you think it will be good for calibration and then suck on it, because at the end of the day, you're still trying to get that win. So if you're not comfortable on these heroes, you might as well want to practice them in, you know, unranked, or maybe overthrow, something like that, to get used to the mechanics and then try it out, or like watch a couple videos on it, BSJ coaching sessions, whatever. Do what you need to get comfortable on the hero, and then play them in your calibration games. And again, I know a lot of you guys have already calibrated, subscribers and things like that, but this video is mainly for the new people, the people who haven't calibrated yet, who want to get a good batch. Because I can tell you, if you go 5 and 5 in your calibration games, you're gonna get a badge that roughly reflects your old MMR. So I had a friend that was 7K, and he went 5 and 5 in his calibration games, played support only, and he went to 6.5k, so he lost about 500 MMR, and now he is Divine 5 rank 60. So you can see, if you go 5 and 5, you're gonna get roughly an equal MMR. Again, everything's skewed down a little bit, especially at the higher end, but like for example, I can pull up the MMR image again. Do I have it here? Hold on, I don't have it here, but excuse the lag a little bit. Let's switch scenes. Is this the scene? There you go. So you can see this is roughly the MMR distribution. So let's say you were previously 3k, you're going to go 5 and 5 in your calibration games, they're going to put you around 3k. Because that's pretty much how the calibration works, right? You might be a little bit above, a little bit below, but overall it still takes into account your win rate. And even if you end up winning a lot, if you're not overly outperforming, that's when it takes into account, you know, your KDA and all of that. So let's say you do end up winning all your calibration games, or almost all of them, like 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, but your impact, or the game looks at your stats and things like that, and it still looks like you're playing for your skill level, they're not going to increase your MMR by that much. So even if you end up winning a lot, same thing with losing, right? So that's also what it takes into account. So if you're losing, but you're not just like going like 0 and 5, and you're not doing awfully in all your games, they're gonna still keep you somewhere near your skill rating. And that's when your gameplay takes into account, is when you are not 5 and 5. When you're 5 and 5, they're gonna keep you roughly where you are. But in this scenario where, you know, you end up with like a lot of bad teammates, or, you know, you end up with a lot of good teammates, and you end up winning a bunch of your calibration games or losing a bunch of calibration games, it's when that happens when they'll actually take your performance into account, and they'll see if you're playing roughly around your MMR, and like your losses or your losses are basically because of your teammates being trolls or whatever, or your wins are just because the enemy is doing the same. and if you're not like playing particularly well, they're not gonna increase your MMR by a crap ton just because you ended up winning most of your calibration games. I think the most I've seen someone increase is like 500 or somewhere around there. So yeah, again, going back to the 3K example, previously if you were 3K and you go 5 and 5, you're mostly going to be put into Archon. So you're going to have that Archon badge and all that. But let's say you went pretty well in your calibration games, you know, you won 8 out of the 10 and you performed well in them, they might bump you up to Legend. If you were a 3K, like Legend, potentially Legend 1, Legend 2. So that's when you will want to perform well in your games, get a good KDA if you're actually trying to increase your badge. I'm sorry I bumped my mic there real quick, but hopefully that didn't make such a loud noise. But again, if you do poorly in all your calibration games and you lose them as well, what's going to happen to you is you're going to get bumped down. You can get bumped down significantly. Again, it's not uncommon for them to knock down your MMR by a whole 500, even more points. So you might go from Archon to almost Crusader, which you don't want. So you want to make sure that, again, you are playing those high impact heroes. So even in the bad games, you're going to maximize your impact. KDA, I already mentioned, that's the main thing, because again, it applies to more than one role. Like GPM, you're not going to get GPM on offlaner and things like the roaming position. You might in some games, but again, KDA is universal. It applies to all heroes, pretty much all roles, except for the 5 position. That's when I will mention the 5 position, how you want to play. If you are a support player or you happen to have to play support in a game, I got a couple of comments on that. And basically, if you're playing support, you gotta make sure you do your job, and the game will see that, and they're gonna, you know, give you the MMR based on your performance as a support, whether you win or lose. They'll take away and give away pretty much an even amount, and that's what you want, right? You don't want to lose a lot of MMR if you're gonna lose that game, and you don't want to not gain as much as you should if you're gonna win, because your performance was awful and the game saw that your team clearly carried you. So what you want to do if you're a support is just buy your supporting items, make sure you get your wards out, and you play support how it should be. Don't do anything weird and try to carry the game, think that as a support you're going to need to get like better stats, because otherwise you're going to screw your calibration, because you know what that's going to do, right? If you're playing support and you think that you need to carry, you're not buying wards, you're not doing the supporting things that your team needs you to do, you're going to actually give your team a higher chance of losing the game. And if that's the case, you might as well not try to pad your stats or all that, because if you're losing the game, you're losing the MMR anyway. So it doesn't matter if your stats look good on a support if you're going to lose the game, so you're still going to lose MMR. And again, the calibration system is mostly near 25, right? They're not going to increase your MMR that much. But as I said, people have been known to gain 500 or lose around 500. So there is a swing. It's not just flat 25. I had some comments saying that it's straight plus 25, minus 25. That is not the case. They do take your account, or they take your performance into account somewhat. And again, it's mostly plus 25, minus 25, especially near the end of the calibration, where, you know, they realize, oh, this is roughly where you should be. And at that point, the end games, or the last games that you play during the calibration, don't matter as much. But especially during the beginning of your calibration, you're going to want that high impact. You want to show that you belong in your bracket, but not only that, you excel in your bracket, and they're going to bump you up a little bit. And again, you're not going to have an 1,000 MMR swing or anything crazy like that. They're just simply not going to do that. That's just insane. But they will swing you up to about 500 MMR. So again, if you're Archon, they might bump you up to Legend. If you're previously Legend, like around 3K, low 4K, they might bump you up to Ancient. Or if you were like 4K before, if you do really well in your calibration games, I've seen people that were like 4.5K or something like that, and they've been bumped up to Divine 1. And it can happen if you do well in your games, you try hard, and you make sure that you have the highest impact possible, but again, at the same time, still playing to win. And that all goes with doing your job. Pretty much, you don't need to worry about like padding your stats. Again, this video might sound like, yeah, I'm telling you guys to get a good KDA and things like that, but no, I'm telling you guys to do your job as your position. So if you're the roamer, you want to do your job as the roamer. Get the ganks off and do what you need to win your team the game. Same thing as offlaner, you know, go to the off lane, get what you need out of the off lane, then go rotate, make space for your carries to farm. Again, it's not all about padding stats. You just want to be able to play heroes that have good impact, good team fighting, because that's where they're gonna see the most impact out of you. Otherwise, because anyone can just farm creeps, and they can't tell too much out of that, because like sometimes farming creeps is the wrong thing to do, but it's almost never the wrong thing to do to, you know, kill the enemy heroes and take towers and things like that. And that's other things that you gotta look at. You know, if you're a pusher, you gotta make sure you get that building damage score high. If you're a team fighter, make sure you get a lot of stunning and things like that. I'm sure they take somewhat of that into account. And again, you want to play those high impact heroes, good KDAs. You want to minimize your death impact, because again, the more time you spend dead, the less time you spend doing something on the map, and more things you spend doing things on the map, they're going to see that and they're going to reward you for it. So it all just goes with playing good Dota. If you're playing good Dota, you're going to do well in your calibration games. If you're not playing good Dota, you're gonna do poorly in your calibration games. So again, what I advise for you guys is not try to do anything weird, right? Don't do anything out of the ordinary just because it's your calibration games. The only things that I could say is maybe buy a bunch of sentries if you're in a winning game, because I still don't know if that works or not, but I did it for sure, and I mean, I got calibrated okay. And that's pretty much the only weird thing I would do, and that's only if you're already in a winning game. But other than that, I would just say just play regular Dota, do your job as your position, whatever your position that you like to play, and make sure that you get good impact. And that goes with just not feeding. I mean, that sounds obvious, but I mean, to a lot of people, they think that to get a good impact, you need to just constantly run in there and fight no matter what. You know, play smart. Play in the back of the fight. If you need to play in the back of the fight, look for opportunities to go in and make sure that you don't die randomly, because the more times you die randomly, the less impact you're going to have, because not only you're feeding the enemy heroes, you're just spending time dead off the map, as I said before. So that's going to be it for this video. It was a little bit longer than needed to be, but I hope you guys enjoyed and hope you learned a lot about the calibration system. Again, this is from my experience, from my friend's experience. This video is coming quite late, but I felt like after my friend calibrated 3 accounts, I talked to him like during most of his calibration games. I had somewhat of the knowledge I need to make this video, because again, we don't know anything for sure, but hope this helped you guys out, and if it did, make sure you leave a like down below, as well as subscribe, because I am uploading videos. We're gonna see some more guide content coming out on this channel. I think this is gonna be the last video about ranked matchmaking and calibration for a while. I'll probably make more videos about, you know, not calibrating MMR but gaining MMR. But this is gonna be it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next. Peace out.